Welcome to the Recovery Cast, brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private.
Hello again. Welcome back to another episode of the Recovery Cast, proudly brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private. My name is Oliver and I am a former addict in recovery. The Recovery Cast is a podcast created by people in recovery from addiction for people in recovery from addiction. There are many definitions of addiction, but we keep it simple. Addiction to us is when people use alcohol, drugs, or certain behaviours repetitively to their detriment, basically when it's a problem for them and their families. Therefore, an addict is not necessarily a needle-using junkie in a dark laneway, and an alcoholic is not necessarily a homeless man in a park. Recovery for us means using an active daily process or program to deal with alcohol use disorder, substance use disorder, or other behavioural addictions. People in recovery are committed to complete abstinence. This daily process is as important to being able to live normal lives as daily dialysis is for people with kidney problems. This podcast is meant as a support tool for those in recovery. I myself am a recovering drug addict. However, each day we're going to focus on a different perspective of recovery. Everyone who participates in the podcast is in an active recovery program. We are not affiliated with any one recovery methodology and will focus on a variety of different types of recovery, including 12-step recovery programs such as Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, and other things like Smart Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, Recovery Dharma, Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, and more. And a quick disclaimer, this podcast is intended to be informative. A podcast alone cannot support your sobriety and recovery, so we suggest it as only one component of a daily recovery routine. And for more information on what recovery is, please go to www.rehab.melbourne. We are going to do a quick reading from the Alcoholics Anonymous Daily Reflections book. And today's reading is November 4, and it's entitled A Daily Discipline. When self-examination, meditation, and prayer are logically related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 98. The last 3 steps of the program invoke God's loving discipline upon my willful nature. If I devote just a few moments every night to a review of the highlights of my day, along with an acknowledgement of those aspects that didn't please me so much, I gain a personal history of myself, one that is essential to my growth or lack of it, and to ask in prayerful meditation to be relieved of those continuing shortcomings that cause me pain. Meditation and prayer also teach me the art of focusing and listening. I find that the turmoil of the day gets tuned out as I pray for His will and guidance. The practice of asking Him to help me in my strivings for perfection puts a new slant on the tedium of any day, because I know there is honour in any job done well. The daily discipline of prayer and meditation will keep me in fit spiritual condition, able to face whatever the day brings without the thought of a drink. That's cool because it sort of continues on from what we were talking about on yesterday's episode, which was meditation. But we're looking at steps 10, 11, and 12 there. 10 being we continued to take inventory and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So that just means we look at the things that we've done, and if we think that we've made a mistake or harmed someone or done something we shouldn't have, we just quickly go and clear it up and say, look, I was wrong and I want to make that clear, and we can move on together now. That's how I do it. If I get a bit grumpy at my girlfriend or something, I quickly realise, hey, Oliver, that's one of those old behaviours of being grumpy and controlling. Stop it right now. That's basically what I do. And then I go and say, honey, I'm sorry. And then, I'll make her a cup of tea and she'll feel better. I'll feel better. And I can move on. Lots of stuff like that. I've talked about that before. And then step 11 is the prayer and meditation thing, where we're just praying and meditating and asking for guidance from our higher power in whatever form that may be. For me, I just ask for to be guided through my day. I don't necessarily ask for, a cloud in the sky to form the shape of some written instructions of what I should do that day, but I just ask for, may I be guided smoothly through my day like a leaf floating down a river, rather than like a pinball getting banged around a pinball machine in an arcade. That's what my life used to be like, really, really reactive and traumatic and violent and just painful. And now it's sort of smooth and easy. And that's just because I put some sort of faith in something just to guide me through the day. And whether it exists or not, it works, which is cool. And then, step 12, they're talking about, actually, do they talk about step 12? I guess the last 3 is helping people, and that's how I get out of myself. It doesn't have to just be people in recovery. I guarantee that is honestly the greatest thing, is to help someone. I love changing people's flat tires on the side of the road. The amount of times I've done that for someone who's been sitting there in their car waiting for the roadside assistance to come. I'm like, hey, you got a spare tire in that thing, don't you? And they're like, yeah, I just don't know how to do it, or I'm just waiting for my, for someone to come and do it. I said, look, you stay in the car, pop the boot, I'll go in there, I'll change it for you right now, and you can get on your way. And, look, you have to ask their permission, and if they're not comfortable with it, you say, no stress, have a good day. But more often than not, people are trying to go somewhere, and they're a bit sort of, oh no, I've got this flat tire. That's a real downer on their day, and to do that and just say, all right, thank you, have a lovely day. Make sure you go and get that tire fixed. That it just gives me a real serious lift. That's just a random act of kindness with absolutely no expectation of any kind of sort of reward. I don't want money. I don't want someone to do anything. It's just go and do something nice, and then they'll go and feel good about themselves too, because someone's helped them, and they might do something nice for someone else. It's that pay it forward movement. I'm a huge believer in that. Like, if I find something, if I find some, I don't know, what have I done? I found jewelry before, just like on the ground in the park or something, and I've handed it in. I found somebody's wallet full of cash in recovery. There was a couple of $100 in there, and I can tell you now that in active addiction, I would have thought, great, and I would have gone and bought substances with that. But to march into the police station and say, hey, Mr. Policeman, I found a wallet full of cash. Here's the guy's ID. Can you look up his number and tell him that, I don't know, tell him to have a good day. I think I found someone's wallet just around Christmas, and I said, tell him to have a Merry Christmas. And actually, because I looked at the guy's ID when I was like trying to find out where he lived or whatever to give it back to him, I saw what he looked like, and then I ended up bumping into him in the same spot that I found the wallet a couple of weeks later. And I said, oh, are you so-and-so? And he said, yeah. I said, oh, I found your wallet. And he's like, mate, thank you. All my cards, I was worrying about somebody using all my credit cards, and it's not part of my life today. I get to help people, and it makes me feel good. So that's a bit of step 12, is carrying the message to the addict that still suffers, or to someone who's still suffering, or just being nice in general. Totally not what I'm going to be talking about next. Actually, I started recording this episode with a intention of following up with you guys about how my Smart Recovery meetings are going. A few days ago, a few episodes ago, I can't remember which one, I talked about Smart Recovery, and I talked about my experience going to my first Smart Recovery meeting. And I actually went to another one, and I'm going to talk to you guys about how that went and what that was like for me after the break.
You're listening to the Recovery Cast by Hills and Rangers Private. Now playing daily on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. For more shows, visit us at www.rehab.melbourne.
All right, so I'm going to talk to you about what was actually going on in this Smart Recovery meeting that I went to yesterday. Smart Recovery is one of the programs that's on offer at Hills and Ranges Private as part of a really comprehensive and holistic approach to treating addiction. And look, through making this podcast, I said to myself, look, Oliver, you can't just do one program that worked for you and then talk about recovery. Like, I've got to try everything. And I've said it before here that recovery is like a great big banquet. I'm not just going to go and eat one thing. And it's like filling up on bread before the meal arrives, basically, in a restaurant. It might work for me, but you know what, there's other things that I haven't tried, and I'm willing to do anything for my recovery. So I've started doing these weekly Smart Recovery meetings. So yeah, I've forgotten the acronym of what Smart Recovery means, but let me just quickly look that up. So anyway, I've been going to these weekly Smart Recovery meetings, and I had a really great experience at this most recent meeting. It was really good because I actually got to see some of the same faces that I saw the week before. So I'm starting to build like an understanding of the people and their journeys and to learn from them, and they learn from me, and we support each other, which is something that's on offer there. Basically, the Smart Recovery meeting was consisting of a follow-up with how I went for the last week of what I'd actually done and what my 7-day plan was. So Smart Recovery is about building motivation, coping with urges, problem solving, and lifestyle balance. And I have, instead of looking at it and talking about my substance addiction, which I actually, I'm recovering. I haven't used in over 4 years, as you guys know. I chose to look at it through the lens of my like overeating stuff that I'm dealing with, and when I got into recovery and I got clean, I still tend to seek comfort from food. So I put something else into my body in order to feel comfort that's not drugs, because obviously, I'm in recovery now, I can't do that. But it's sort of my addiction manifests in different ways. So, and I have looked up what SMART means: self-management and recovery training. So it's literally you manage yourself and you train and you stay in recovery. That's what it's about. I've learned a few different things this week. So what I tried last week with my overeating stuff was I tended to eat a lot at dinner time, and especially if I've been busy throughout the day. So I've learned that, yes, I was trying to do one portion at dinner and no dessert. That was my primary thing. That's what I'm going to try for the next 7 days. And it's the 7-day plan that you formulate in the meeting. So that was what I did last week. And this week, I found that when I checked in, I was like, okay, well, it sort of worked most of the time. Sometimes I had sort of 2 servings of dinner, and I didn't have dessert. So that was okay. It's actually gone quite well, but it wasn't perfect. I had some input from the other people that were attending the Smart Recovery meeting, and obviously it wasn't just for overeating. Smart Recovery is for addiction. So whether it be drugs, alcohol, anything that, whatever your poison is, basically. I learned that what I actually need to do is make sure that I eat regular meals. So rather than being super busy all day and then just having a huge dinner and maybe some toast for breakfast and skipping lunch or forgetting or something like that, it's actually setting me up to overeat. So I'm trying to eat at least every 3 hours and just make sure that I'm never actually really hungry. And it's working so far, even though I've only been doing it for 1 day, which is incredible. So that's part of my 7-day plan, is to make sure that I feed myself and eat nourishing food. The other thing that I learned this thing called urge surfing. I'd never heard this term before, and it sounded really cool. I was like, hang on a minute. Somebody said urge surfing in the meeting. Another person who was attending the meeting said, I'm going to try urge surfing. And I was like, what is that? And I said, what's urge surfing? I'm looking at mindfulness, www.mindfulness.org.au. And obviously mindfulness is a great technique to treat recovery, to treat addiction. Urge surfing is a mindfulness technique that can be used to help with any addictive behavior, such as gambling, overeating, inappropriate sex, or any other destructive impulses. Urges for substance use rarely last for very long if there is no opportunity to indulge them. People admitted to a high-quality detoxification centre where there is no access to their drug of choice often find it remarkable how little craving they get. I can just say that was exactly my experience, is that when I went into treatment, it was like the urge to use was just lifted from me because I was in this safe environment. There was no opportunity to use. Where there is no opportunity to use, then there is no internal struggle. It is this internal struggle that feeds the cravings. Trying to fight cravings is like trying to block a waterfall. We end up being inundated. With the approach of mindfulness, we step aside and watch the water, the cravings, the impulses and urges, and it just goes right past. It also says most of us will have had past experiences of urges passing. This is an important strategy to identify, as it can greatly improve self-efficacy for riding out urges. How interesting. I literally only really read that for the first time, and now I have a really good understanding of what urge surfing actually is. I'm going to try that next time, because I found that when there's some really nice ice cream in the freezer and it's about 9 p.m. at night and I'm sitting watching, some YouTube or Netflix or whatever, I end up, there's no choice in it. But urge surfing, I think what they talked about first in that is that when you're in an environment where there's no access to it, that it's remarkable how little cravings there are. So first of all, I'm not going to buy the ice cream in the first place. Great, problem solved. But also, if I just sit and look at that and sort of see that craving and be aware of it and say, all right, Oliver, look, you're having cravings now. And this doesn't have to be, I'm not telling you guys not to eat ice cream. I'm using it for something that is a manifestation of my addictive behavior, but it can be for drugs, it can be for alcohol, it can be any addictive behavior. That's what they specify here in urge surfing. Then I'm going to be aware of my cravings and I'm going to look at it and be aware of it and watch it flow right past like a waterfall instead of trying to block the waterfall. And what was interesting is I tried that and it passed. I think for me, I can't just use urge surfing for recovery. I really need to use lots of different programs and lots of different techniques, and the more I use, the more I get out of my recovery. And for me, for the food, I reckon urge surfing will be something that I'm going to try, and I'm going to check back in with you guys next week when I've done another meeting. I'll see if the urge surfing worked. I'll see if the mindfulness techniques worked. And it's what I also actually discussed in the Smart Recovery meeting is that whenever I feel like overeating, then I'll try and meditate as well. And just that's sort of pretty much urge surfing again, because it's just becoming aware of that feeling. So I looked at my past techniques from the last 7-day plan and I added some more. And I saw lots of people doing that for themselves too. I saw some people come into the Smart Recovery meeting who had been coming back from a lapse and they were encouraged to get back into it and keep attending and keep doing everything that they need to do for their recovery. That's nice. It's a nice, inclusive environment. There wasn't any judgment. And I find that is that when we go to these recovery programs, whether it be AA or NA or any of the 12-step ones or Recovery Dharma or Smart or anything, where there's other people that are suffering from the same stuff in the same room, there's an understanding that I just don't get from, a psychologist or a psychiatrist who doesn't understand because they haven't lived that. So yeah, there's another example of what you can do for your recovery, or if you're looking to get into recovery, give the team at Hills and Ranges Private a call. Just go and visit their website at www.rehab.melbourne and talk to them about it. There's all kinds of options available for you, and try as many things as you can. It's pretty awesome. I'm really enjoying this process, actually. I'm getting a lot out of it. We'll check back in and see how I went next week. But in the meantime, thank you for listening to another episode of the Recovery Cast, brought to you by Hills and Ranges Private. I've been Oliver, and I really look forward to speaking to you again on another recovery topic tomorrow. Hope you have an awesome day. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Recovery Cast. For more, visit us at www.rehab.melbourne.